Did the Sarnia-Lambton real estate market crash in 2025? Or is the headline doom and gloom missing the real story? Stay with me for just a few minutes, and you might be surprised of really what happened. Hey, I'm Sean Ryan with Blue Coast Team with CB Southwest Realty, and this is your December 2025 Sarnia-Lambton real estate recap and your 2026 outlook. In this video, we're going to see what happened with prices and sales locally, how the Bank of Canada and the Canadian housing market are shaping up buyer behavior, and what new developments and housing projects here in Sarnia-Lambton could mean for your property value and your next move. So whether you're thinking of buying, selling, or just keeping an eye on your equity, this will give you a clear, no-nonsense picture of where we are and where we could be heading. And before we dive into the numbers, here's what we're going to cover in this update so you can skip to what matters the most to you. First, we're going to look at how the Sarnia-Lambton market actually finished in 2025. We're going to look at sales, new listings, prices, and inventory, and what that means in plain language. If you're buying or selling. Second, we're going to zoom into the city of Sarnia and break things down by your home type and price bracket, and we'll talk about what parts of the market are moving fastest right now. Third, we're going to zoom out to the Canadian level and see what's happening with the national housing market, the Bank of Canada, and how interest rate decisions are shaping buyer behavior heading into 2026. And fourth, we're going to talk about the big federal housing moves like New Builds Canada Home Agency, the extended foreign buyer ban, the new GST HST breaks for rentals and first-time buyers of new homes, and what those mean for future supply and affordability. And finally, we're going to bring it back to Sarnia-Lambton with some key local development projects, including affordable and supportive housing, builds and finish, with the key takeaways for buyers, sellers, and investors in 2026. So let's start with a quick snapshot of how Sarnia-Lambton market finished in 2025. In December, there were 74 residential sales across Sarnia-Lambton region, which is down about 22% compared to December 2024. So activity cooled a bit to the end of the year. New listings came in at 118, which is roughly 13% year over year, which means sellers didn't pull back, as well as we did not see a flood of new supply. The average sale price in December landed around $507,000, up about 2.9% compared to last December, while the median price sat at $440,000, showing that prices are holding rather than collapsing. Months of inventory was at about 4.9, which is firmly in a balanced market territory and a big change for the extreme sellers market. For the full year 2025, there were 1,618 residential sales in the region, up about 2.6 from 2024. So despite higher borrowing costs, buyers were still active, and we saw 3,266 new listings over the year. That's about 6% more than 2024, pushing year-to-date months of inventory to around that 4.5. Again, consistent with a more balanced, healthier market. And the year-to-date average price came in at just $528,000. So basically flat compared to last year, which signals stabilization rather than sharp gains or losses. So bottom line, sales softened a bit, a year-end inventory increased a bit, and prices flattened out, a classic sign of a market catching its breath, not a crash. So now let's zoom into what's happening specifically in the city of Sarnia and with different types of home. In the city of Sarnia, December saw 54 residential sales, which is down about 14% from December 2024. So the slowdown was noticeable, but not dramatic. Only 52 new listings hit the Sarnia market, down about 24% year over year, meaning fewer sellers decided to list during the holidays. The average sale price in Sarnia proper for December was around $437,000, so down roughly 6% for the same month last year. While the median house was about $421,000, months of inventory in Sarnia sat close to 3.5 months, which is right on the edge of a balanced market, giving buyers more choice without completely taking sellers off the table. Looking at the full year picture of Sarnia City, there were roughly 1,618 residential sales in 2025, and up just 3% compared with 2024. About 1,914 new listings came to the market, up about 4%, giving buyers, again, more options across price ranges and neighborhoods. And the year-to-date average price in Sarnia was just over $500,000, with a median around the mid-400s, showing gentle normalization rather than big swings. By home styles, bungalows remain the most popular product in December, with 38 sold at an average price point of $525,000, making them the key segment for both families and downsizers. Two-story homes averaged roughly $385,000, and 1.5 stories were hitting the market around $339,000, illustrating the price gap between smaller, older stock and newer, larger homes. When you look at sales by price bracket, most December activity happened between the $300,000 to $600,000, with very few sales under $200,000 and only a handful over that $900,000. That keeps Sarnia-Lambton attractive for buyers coming from higher price markets elsewhere in Ontario, because you still get a lot of house for your money here. Local numbers are one thing, but they are always shaped by the national picture and interest rates. So let's talk briefly about that. Across Canada, the housing market cooled modestly in late 2025, with the national average home price in November sitting around the high 600s and down about 1% to 2% year over year. National home sales in November were down roughly 10 to 11% compared with a year earlier, and CREA described activity as being in a bit of a holding pattern heading into 2026. At the same time, new listings nationally dipped only slightly, which nudged the sales to new listing ratio into that low 50% range, right in line with a balanced national market. Forecasts for 25 and 2026 call for essentially flat national sales in 2025 and only modest increase in 2026, with small average price declines in Ontario rather than big drops. On the interest rate side, though, as of December 10th, 2025, the Bank of Canada is holding its policy rate at 2.25%, with the bank rate at 2.5%, and the deposit rate at 2.2%. This comes after earlier cuts in 2025. And the bank has indicated that this level of rate is appropriate to keep inflation near its 2% target, while the economy works through trade and growth headwinds. For mortgage shoppers and homeowners, that stability matters. Mortgage specialists note that a rate freeze around this level creates a more predictable environment for both buyers and sellers and discourages panic moves. The trade-off is that borrowing costs are still a little bit higher than ultra-low rates a few years ago, which is why many markets, including Sarnia-Lambton, are seeing those flat prices and longer days on market instead of rapid appreciation. In practical terms, for the Sarnia-Lambton, higher but stable interest rates plus a balanced national market means our region relatively affordable stands out to even more, especially to buyers coming from places where the average price are much higher. This helps explain why our annual sales were slightly higher in 2025, even though conditions have clearly cooled from those peak years. Before we get back to the local numbers, a quick word on to what Ottawa's been doing on housing in late 2025. The federal government rolled out new initiatives called Build Canada Homes, backed by roughly $13 billion over 5 years to accelerate affordable and non-market housing builds across the country. That money includes a $1 billion fund for transitional and supportive housing and $1.5 billion for Canada Rental Protection Fund. And that helps nonprofits buy existing rental buildings and keep them affordable instead of losing them to investors or luxury conversions. On top of that, Ottawa is putting more money into housing enabling infrastructures like roads, water, and sewers, and has extended the federal foreign buyer ban on residential property through to 2027 to keep homes focused more on people that can actually live on them instead of out-of-country investors. These moves will obviously, they're not going to fix the housing crisis overnight, but they do support more rentals and affordable supply over the next few years, which will shape every local market, including Sarnia-Lambton. There have also been some important tax changes that affect new construction. For builders of new purpose-built rental housing, the federal government now offers full GST rebates on qualifying projects, and Ontario is matching that on the provincial side, which they can effectively wipe out the entire 13% HST on eligible new rental buildings. To qualify, these projects have to be true to long-term rentals, with construction starting within a specific time window and at least 90% of the units intended for tenants and not short-term rentals or condos. For buyers, Budget 2025 also proposed a new GST HST break for first-time buyers in new homes on top of the existing new housing rebates, which would significantly reduce or even eliminate the 5% federal GST on eligible new builds under $1 million, or I think $1.5 million. The exact rules and timing depends on how the laws are. So anyone looking at new builds in 2025 or 2026, well, I guess just 2026 now, should have their lender, lawyer, or account confirm they qualify for, but the overall direction is clear. Ottawa is trying to make it more attractive for buyers and builders and rentals, and a bit easier for first-time buyers to get into a new home. Beyond real estate stats, there are several important local housing and development projects that will shape Sarnia-Lambton's market over the next few years. On the affordable housing front, Habitat for Humanity Sarnia-Lambton is building a new fourplex on Union Street in Forest, which will provide safe, affordable homes for 4 local families and follows a successful earlier build on the same street. Habitat has also announced a 5-unit tiny home project at 236 Christina Street South in Sarnia with groundbreaking target for 2026, adding initiative compact units right in the city. In addition, Habitat's broader plan is to deliver a total of 10 new affordable homes, 5 in Forest and 5 in Sarnia by the end of 2026. Supported by a $2.5 million fundraising campaign, these builds not only help address housing needs for lower income families, they also gradually improve neighborhood stability and can enhance the long-term appeal of the surrounding streets. Another key project is a 3-story building at 471 Kathleen Ave in Sarnia, which will deliver 50 single-bedroom units, including 14 barrier-free supportive housing units. Construction has been moving steadily, with the build structure well underway and enclosed and working process through late 2025 as we go into 2026 here. At the policy level, Lambton County's Affordable Housing Fund has really come under some pressure, with local reporting suggesting that funding shortfalls could put portions of the pipeline of up to 252 new units at risk. The tension between strong need and tightened funding is a key backdrop to these resale markets. If new affordable units lag, more pressure could spill over into both rentals and lower priced ownership. When these projects are completed, they will add a mix of affordable and supportive units, tiny homes, and family housing that can maybe help release some pressure at the bottom of the market and broaden the range of options for residents. For buyers and investors, these developments can subtly change the feel and desirability of certain areas over time, especially in the areas around Sarnia and Forest. Sarnia has dramatically reduced the cost of development fees as well, and after hiking their development fees a few years ago, they've almost cut them in half at the end of 2025. Now let's translate all of this into practical takeaways if you're thinking of making a move in 2026. For sellers in Sarnia-Lambton, the big message is that pricing strategy matters more than ever. With December's average price around $507,000 and year-to-date average about $525,000, but with more listings and months of inventory around 4.5 to 5.6, overpricing will mostly result in extra days on the market rather than multiple offers. The median days on the market in December was about 46 days, roughly double the pace from the hottest parts of the cycle. So realistic pricing and strong presentations are essential. Detached homes remain the backbone of the market, with an average detached price in December around $524,000 and the sales price ratio close to 95%, which means most sellers are negotiating rather than getting big over ask results. And if you're a move-up seller, you may accept a bit less than you hope for in your current place, but you'll also be buying your next home in a calmer, more balanced market. For buyers, this is a more comfortable market than 2021 and 2022. Higher inventory, higher months of inventory, near 4.5 months for the year means that you have more choices, more time, and better chances of including conditions like financing, inspection. Interest rates are higher than they were at the rock bottom levels, but with the Bank of Canada holding steady at 2.25% and signaling a cautious stance, you will at least have more predictable rates backdrop to plan. Sarnia-Lambton continues to shine as an affordable place within Ontario. Local averages in the low 500s compare favorably to many larger centers where the average price are hundreds of thousands of dollars higher. For first-time home buyers or people relocating from the GTA or other more expensive markets, that can mean home ownership or a larger property is still within reach. For investors, the story is more about fundamentals than quick flips. With prices flat and days on market longer, returns are going to depend on buying in the right neighborhoods, setting rents appropriately, and managing expenses, rather than counting on rapid price growth. For the new affordable and supportive projects in Sarnia-Lambton, it can improve neighborhood stability over time, which is good for long-term investors who focus on well-located properties with steady tenant demand. Overall, Sarnia-Lambton ends 2025 as a balanced, stable market, not in a free fall, not in a frenzy, just more normal environment where good data, strong marketing, and smart financing decisions really make the difference. Who is really winning in this market? Sellers who are in that first-time home buyer price range, who are moving up, are doing really well. They're selling a home that price range under $6,000 for a really good dollar and able to negotiate some really good terms and prices on their move-up home. With all the mortgage changes, you definitely want to also reach out to your bank to see what options are for maybe breaking your mortgage and getting a lower rate if you purchased or refinanced earlier this year or at the end of 2024. So to wrap up 2025 in Sarnia-Lambton, brought significantly higher sales than last year. More inventory, flat but stable. Prices and a backdrop of steady Bank of Canada policy and active local housing development. If you're curious of what these numbers meant for your specific property or your buying power in 2026, reach out for a personalized market evaluation or a buyer consult. So this is Sean Ryan with the Blue Coast team in CB Southwest. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.